One of the toughest things that any of us have to do is recover from disappointment. And a lot of times that disappointment, it's a ratio on what our expectations are of a situation and the outcomes that we get. So if our expectations are low and the outcomes are amazing, well, we're happy. But if our expectations are high and the outcomes are not as good, well, then disappointment can lead to depression, and it actually can affect our enjoyment of what we're doing. A lot of people quit activities because of their disappointment in themselves or that they're disappointing others. That is the focus of today's podcast. And I'm super excited because I'm like, who would be better to talk about disappointment than somebody who's won 7 Olympic gold medals? And you're going to say, well, it sounds like this person's won a lot, but he's also had to overcome a lot of disappointment. So I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to my very good friend, the one and only Greg Louganis. So welcome, Greg. And
thank you. And you gave me a few more Olympic.
I always give you 2 extra. I always give you 2 extra. I don't know where, but you know what? Those were the boycotted ones.
Right.
I know you're going to get double gold there. So whenever I'm talking about you, I always say 7, and people look you up on Wikipedia. I think this dude's only got 5. No, there was the boycotted Russian ones, and I know he was in his prime. He would have got those as well. No. So I am actually giving. So I want to share how we came about. I got to bring Greg in on this conversation. So we got an email into our customer happiness. It was a private email sent by one of the members of our membership, Agility Nation. So it's for dog agility. So let's first, Greg, talk about, I'm sure that you have these were the most disappointing or devastating moments for you. But I want to share 2 that I can think of that may have been, and maybe you don't want to talk about them and I might be putting you on the spot, but the most obvious was when you're at the Olympics, I think it was 88, and you were supposed to, be a shoo-in, but you had, was it the Chinese diver that was supposed to be like, he was like neck and neck with you?
Yeah.
And then you hit your head.
Okay. Yeah. Susan, those were 2 separate events.
Okay. So go ahead, fill me in.
Okay. So in the men's 3-meter springboard preliminaries, I did my reverse 2.5, hit my head on the board. And then, when you do something like that, I'm supposed to be a pretty good diver, and pretty good divers don't do stuff like that, So my first sense was, I came off the board. I knew I was going to be close. So I was afraid of hitting my hands. And then I thought I was past the board, and I heard this big hollow thud, and I go crashing in the water, and I'm like going, what was that? And then I realized, oh my God, that was my head. Oh. And I go crashing in the water. And the first feeling I felt was embarrassment because I'm supposed to be a pretty good diver, and pretty good divers don't do that kind of thing. And then I got angry with myself. And I think that it was the anger that really pushed me through. Okay. So it was, I had my head sewn up, and then my coach came to me, Ron O'Brien. He said, look, you can walk away. You don't have to get back up on the board. I'll support you, 100%. And I turned to him and I said, we've worked too long and hard to get here, and I don't want to give up without a fight. So then I said, okay, let's.
And where did that put you? That like zeros, right? So where did that put you? Like now you're trying to get a spot to get into the next round, correct?
Right. Yeah. So I thought, because I did get some zeros, but I got some halves and ones, I did complete the dive. So I thought I was totally out of the running, and I had stacked up a big enough lead that I dropped, I just dropped. I still had 2 more dives. So I had to do those dives, complete those dives to stay in that top to make the finals. But I had to do those dives. And so
what are you feeling? Like, you have to do the dives. You're angry at yourself. And so how do you recover from that, Greg, and get back up on for your next dive?
Well, that's the thing, because I've been doing all this work, right brain, left brain, and performance lives in the right brain.
Okay.
It's very, creative, color, music, all of that lives in the right brain. Your physical ability, your, performance, just right there. And so my coach, he started, joking with me and saying, "Oh, hockey players, they get 30 stitches and get back on the ice. You got 5 stitches in your head. That's nothing." And we were just laughing. And because like when you do something like that, it just totally destroys your confidence. I mean, I had absolutely no confidence. And that was one of the things that that my coach, Ron O'Brien, told me. He said, look, I know you don't have any confidence in yourself, but believe in me because I believe in you. And so then I had that love and trust and faith in that love, really.
Right.
And so, I got up on the board and they announced my dive. I hit on a reverse 2.5 pike. I was doing a reverse 1.5 with 3.5 twists is my next dive, going in the same direction. So they announced the dive. I set the board.
And you can't change that and say, I don't want to do a reverse right now.
No, I can. I don't want to go in that direction. No. And so I set the board, and when they announced the dive, I could hear from the audience an audible gasp, like, "Oh my God," because and I was scared too. And I felt like my heart was beating outside my chest. So I took a deep breath and then I patted my chest. So 2 things I did, and fear is excitement minus breath. So then I added the breath, and then I patted my chest, and the people who were around me saw that and they giggled. They're like, "Oh my God, he's scared too. He's afraid." And it made me laugh because I was like, "Oh my God, these people are on my side. They want to see me succeed. And I'm scared too." And I had no idea what was going to happen because a dive takes less than 3 seconds. And you have to be on. And so I had no idea. And this is the Olympics, and you can't hold back at the Olympics.
Had you ever hit your head before in any dive in practice?
In a competition in Tbilisi, in Georgia, it was the Soviet Union at that time. I hit my head on the platform and I was out for like 20 minutes. I had a pretty bad concussion. And the thing about that one is I don't remember it.
Wow.
I remember jumping up, touching my feet. I was doing a reverse dive and I saw the sun in my legs and I thought, what a beautiful day, and nothing.
Wow.
Nothing after that. So I don't remember hitting. I don't remember landing in the water, smacking, but and that was easy to get over because I don't remember it. But
interesting.
The reverse 2.5 in '88 in Seoul, I was totally conscious.
But Greg, what do you do with the humiliation and the embarrassment that you're the best diver in the world and you just like pooped the bed?
Yeah, and it was not pretty. Well, the thing is, it was an isolated incident. And a lot of people said, how did you get over that? I didn't have time to get over that. In order to get over something, you have to process it. And processing takes time. I had to do that dive in that competition. I didn't have time to get over it. So it's like I put that incident in a box and put it on the shelf.
Gotcha.
I'll deal with it later. It didn't happen.
Okay. And did you go back to that during those same Olympics, or did you go back to that at a later point, or did you ever go back to that?
At a later point, when it was far after the Olympic Games. Yeah. So, so I just set that aside. And the other thing too, I mean, I was favored to win at that Olympics. There was a lot going on. I was diagnosed HIV positive 6 months before. I was on AZT, so there was those stressors. My coach, Ron O'Brien, his mother went into a coma. She died while we were at the Olympics.
Really? I didn't know
And
that.
so he wasn't sure if he was going to be staying with us or not. And I couldn't have gotten through that Olympics without him.
Mm-hmm.
And so his mindset was that his mother would have wanted him to stay, because there was nothing for him to do at home.
For sure.
And so, there was so much going on. And both Ron and I, before the Olympics, were quite distracted, really, with a lot of things. And so, in that incident, that second that I hit my head, it shifted everything. That nothing's guaranteed, nothing's for sure, anything can happen, and it forced us to focus on each moment. It was one dive at a time, moment by moment, getting through. And so I think that's what helped allow us, because we've been through this. And Susan, it's like what you say, we get good at what we practice, right? Mm-hmm. And so these are things that I practiced through my entire career.
For sure.
So when you see an Olympic performance, what people are seeing is a finished product.
Right.
Of years and hours, hundreds of thousands of hours of training.
And obviously it's just an unconscious routine. Like you can't be in that 3-second period and go, okay, remember to point your toes.
Right. And because if you start thinking that way, if you start thinking left brain, analytical, it's done, because it's too late. You can't make the synapses that quickly, from your left brain to your right brain, left brain.
I just want to recap the things that we talked about. So I wrote some things down. And one is at that moment when you're disappointed, when whatever happens, acknowledging what you feel and where are you feeling in your body? And then, giving it permission to be there, because we're humans and we feel and anger or disappointment. And a big one is disappointing to the others, our coaches, our family, our, my spouse at home, who we've invested some of our money in me going to this event. And now look at, I've not done so well. So there's all that. So acknowledging that, and then looking at, the things that are outside of your control that you've allowed to come into effect, and what meaning that we're giving that really putting things in a lotus and sending them off. And then looking for what was the lesson in there. And it might not be obvious right away. I mean, by her writing that letter, we've had this conversation, and it's just opened up possibilities to so many more people. Think about, I want to just make sure. Yeah, I think that's it. And if there's anything you wanted to add there, Greg, on
Susan, the one thing that I wanted to add is that, oftentimes, because this has been something that I've struggled with too, I'm fearful of certain emotions, anger, hate, rage. I'm fearful, so I'll squelch them down. It's okay to feel those. And also, don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to laugh. That it's okay, to acknowledge those feelings, those sensations, those emotions. They are what they are. Mm-hmm. And you have to feel them to get beyond them.
And have, visualize somebody saying, you can quit.
Yeah.
You can quit.
Yeah.
But then where does that leave you? But you have that power. So
right.
I think a lot of times, like you talked about, social media and people growing up in this world today, that they're afraid to put themselves out there because of the implications of them not being successful. We're all not successful a lot of the times. And and be okay with that. And because otherwise you're going to walk away from so many things that could be amazing parts of your life.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I didn't read my press.
No.
Had I read my press at my first Olympics, which I was a silver medal, not gold,
right?
But
Montreal.
In Montreal, had I read the press and I've been obsessed with that, I never would have stepped foot on that platform because I was, it was the two young guys, going after the Klaus DiBiase,
right.
From Italy, the old man. And so I didn't read that. My filter at that time, through my diving career was my mom. My mom, I wouldn't read my press, but if mom read an article and they had nice things to say to me, said, okay, read this article. And so the next time you see this reporter, because I was going to see those sports reporters again,
right,
then I could go to them and thank them for their kind words.
Well, that's beautiful.
So,
and you bring up your mom. One of the things that you used to say all the time, there's a couple things I remember that learning from your mom, that one was, as your way of grounding yourself, no matter what the outcome, my mother is still going to love me.
Yeah. No matter what happens, my mother's still going to love me.
And that was a way that you put yourself into your right brain so
right.
that you could perform at your best. And another thing that's completely unrelated, but I say this over and over, and I've told so many people this one that came from your mom, is try to leave a place better than when you arrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another beautiful.
Make everywhere you go better because you were there.
Yeah.
Whether it's picking up a piece of trash or anything.
Saying a kind word.
Kind words, smile, and, I can attest to that one. Somebody, I was in a really bad mindset, and I was at the market and somebody smiled, and it's like, oh my God, that just totally, no words were exchanged. She just smiled at me. It was like, oh. And so it just, you don't know how that, opens up somebody else's heart, when they need that, kind of virtual embrace,
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Absolutely. You're always smiling with your eyes, though.
Try.
Is there anything else that we're going to include here? I mean, we've covered so many things. I probably am not going to do them justice in the summary of how we can overcome and how important it is to overcome, because life has a way of bringing lessons back to you if you ignore them the first time. And what a beautiful way to learn them, other than doing a sport that you love, and just embrace that as, this is meant for me, and it's amazing, even though you might be falling on your face or hitting your head on a diving board. It's meant for you, right? Like I
think the important thing too, Susan, is to we have to practice courage all the time. But we also have to acknowledge those courageous acts that we do every day.
That's so good.
Because that's, because we're stepping through things that are uncomfortable all the time. That's a part of life. And to step through that, but acknowledging it and giving ourselves that little pat on the back, like, yeah, I was really brave today.
And that's so important. Regardless if you are competing in a sport, you're running a business, and you get like something disastrous happens and you're near financial ruin, and that, acknowledge where you were courageous and move on. And so important if you're a parent and you have a child who's completely devastated because of an outcome in sport or at school, and that to not discount their feelings and say, let's go get an ice cream, to do what your mom did and say, let's acknowledge it. And then when there are great things that they do well, like, I think acknowledging effort is far more important than acknowledging talent or success. Right. Acknowledging effort, because continuous effort will bring success. But if you're proud, if you say, I'm so proud of you because you got this medal or you achieved this status, you need to be proud because of the effort. Because when they don't achieve that status, did I lose the pride that you have in me?
Right. Yeah. And because Carol Dweck does a wonderful job in explaining that. Is like, oh, you're brilliant, you're awesome, but to acknowledge exactly what you're saying, acknowledge the effort that it took to get there, because otherwise it becomes, that's where we're building pressure. If you're a genius, you're all of these things, then what we're doing is we're putting a limitation on potential success is. But if you're validating the effort
and the courage.
And the courage, you're acknowledging that that's just a place of trajectory that you can continue on, and that your limitations are limitless.
Absolutely. That's just so perfect. And it just goes back to The Man in the Arena, that beautiful poem that is acknowledging that you're the one who had the courage to say, I think I'm ready. And regardless of the outcome, you had the courage to say, I think I'm ready. I'm going to put myself in this situation. And there is no failure after that.
Right.
You're winning a lesson, or you're winning a class, and hopefully you're still finding lessons in that win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Greg, this has been so awesome. Thank you for doing this so early in the morning for you out there in California. And sure. I miss you. And
I miss you too. Oh my God.
I know. I can't wait for this pandemic to end and we can be in person having chats.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
So thank you for doing it. And anybody who's watching this, please leave us a comment. Let me know what gold you were able to glean from this conversation between one of the greatest athletes of all times and one of the greatest people, more importantly, in such an awesome person. And leave us a comment and let us know. And then check out Greg's meditation and motion program. And because any time you get to spend with this man is time well spent.
Thank you, Susan. I miss you so much.
I miss you too, buddy. How special is that? Greg Louganis, one of the most amazing humans on the planet, right here on the podcast. Look at it. You don't have to be training for some elite outcome with your dog. You could be training your dog just to be an amazing member of your family. But sometimes things don't happen the way they should, and disappointment is going to happen. And that's why I felt this interview would be of great value for everybody to listen to, at least in part. Remember, celebrate courage. Look at where you stepped up today just by attempting to train your puppy or your dog. Celebrate your dog's courage today. Look for what's good. Allow yourself to feel emotions of anger or frustration or disappointment. That's the only way you're going to move on from them. For those of you watching this video who are members of Agility Nation, jump on over to Agility Nation now, because the full interview, which is well over an hour long, is there waiting for you. And there is a lot of gems to be gleaned. For those of you who are watching this and you aren't on Agility Nation and you would love to hear more of what Greg had to say, I'm going to make it very accessible to everybody. Agility Nation is a membership that has obviously a lot of information about how to train your dog in agility, but there's a lot more in that membership as well, because it's been around for 5 years. So when you join, you don't just get access to this month's information. You get access to all 415 videos that are there. So things that like puppy training or fitness, both for the dogs and for the humans. I share some of my own coaches, like Courtney Stephen, a professional football player who shares some amazing way to improve your footwork for running, or my fitness trainer who shares some exercises on mobility or strength training. So much in there. Obviously, there's a lot of dog training, and yes, there's a lot of agility. You could join for a month, or you could stay on for as long as you like. Agility Nation is $79 a month. But when you go to register, put in the discount code of Greg20. Yeah, he should have won 20 Olympic medals, right? I'm giving him a couple extra now. Greg20 to receive a discount so that you can watch this video in its entirety. As I mentioned before, please leave me a comment. Let me know if this was of value and if you would like me to interview somebody in the future. See you next time on Shaped by Dog.